Illegal mining and conflict minerals are often discussed as problems of resource extraction, but at their core, they are problems of incentives. The minerals themselves are not the cause of violence. Gold does not kill. Coltan does not wage war. Cobalt does not recruit child soldiers. People do, and they do so because the economics make it worthwhile. Across Africa, the demand for critical minerals continues to rise. The smartphones in our pockets require tantalum. Electric vehicle batteries require cobalt. Modern electronics rely on tin, tungsten, copper, and rare earth elements. As the global economy transitions toward renewable energy and advanced technology, demand for these minerals is expected to increase significantly. The Democratic Republic of the Congo alone supplies a substantial share of the world's cobalt and tantalum, making it central to global technology and energy supply chains. But where legitimate markets generate wealth, illicit markets often emerge alongside them. Welcome to the Illicit Index channel, where we investigate the hidden economies, criminal networks, and illicit systems shaping our world. Today, we turn our attention to one of Africa's most valuable and most controversial resources, the minerals that power modern life, the gold in global financial markets, the cobalt in electric vehicle batteries, the coltan in smartphones and computers, the resources that fuel the digital age and the global green energy transition. Yet beneath the promise of prosperity lies a darker reality. Across parts of Africa, illegal mining and conflict minerals have become linked to armed conflict, environmental destruction, corruption, organized crime, and human suffering. For some communities, mineral wealth has created jobs, investment, and economic opportunity. For others, it has brought violence, exploitation, displacement, and death. So are Africa's vast mineral resources a blessing, or have they become a curse? How do minerals extracted from remote mining sites end up in products used around the world? Who profits from this trade? Who pays the price? And can the global demand for critical minerals be separated from the conflicts that often surround their extraction? In this investigation, we follow the money, examine the evidence, and uncover the hidden costs behind one of the most important industries of the 21st century, Africa's mineral curse. At the dawn of the 20th century, European geologists famously dubbed the Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC, a geological scandal due to its bewildering concentration of natural wealth. Today, economists estimate that the country sits on top of more than $24 trillion in untapped mineral deposits. Despite hosting vast reserves of the world's most critical elements, over 81% of the Congolese population lives on less than $3 a day. This stark paradox is the world's most tragic example of the resource curse, a cycle of exploitation, systemic corruption, and regional warfare that has evolved over more than a century. Exploitation and regional conflict. To fully understand today's conflict minerals crisis, we must first understand Congo's history. For more than a century, the country's vast mineral wealth has attracted foreign powers, corporations, and armed groups. Yet instead of bringing prosperity, these resources have often brought exploitation and conflict. In the late 1800s, King Leopold II of Belgium turned Congo into his personal colony, forcing millions to harvest rubber under a brutal system of forced labor. Those who failed to meet quotas faced severe punishment, and millions are believed to have died during this period. When Belgium took control in 1908, the focus shifted from rubber to mining. Congo's copper, gold, diamonds, and uranium helped fuel global industries. In fact, the uranium used in the atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki came from Congo's Shinkolobwe mine. After independence in 1960, hopes for prosperity quickly faded. Political instability led to the rise of Mobutu Sese Seko, who ruled for decades while much of the country's mineral wealth disappeared into corruption and personal enrichment. The situation worsened after the 1994 Rwandan genocide. The resulting instability triggered two major wars that claimed an estimated 5 million lives. Armed groups and foreign armies fought not only for territory, but also for control of Congo's valuable minerals. Today, groups such as M23 continue to battle for control of mining regions and trade routes in eastern Congo. More than a century after the rubber terror, the struggle over Congo's resources continues. The minerals powering smartphones, computers, and electric vehicles generate billions of dollars worldwide. But for many Congolese communities, the question remains the same. Will these resources become a blessing, or will they remain a curse? Anatomy of the wealth, the seven core minerals. The modern conflict is heavily concentrated in the eastern provinces like North Kivu, South Kivu, and Ituri, where everyday consumer tech and the green energy transition drive global demand. Cobalt. The DRC produces over 70% of the world's cobalt, a metal absolutely essential for the lithium-ion batteries found in smartphones, laptops, and electric vehicles (EVs). Coltan, short for columbite tantalite. This black ore is refined into tantalum, a heat-resistant powder used to manufacture capacitors in almost all modern electronic devices. Copper, vital for global electrical grids, green energy tech, and construction. The DRC surpassed Peru to become the world's second-largest copper producer. Gold and diamonds, highly portable, high-value commodities. Illicit gold fields in the northeast, such as the Ituri district, are easily smuggled across porous borders into neighboring countries to fund local warlords. The three T's, tin, tungsten, tantalum, along with coltan, these are globally designated as conflict minerals. Armed groups levy illegal taxes on miners at gunpoint, using the cash to purchase weapons and sustain cycles of localized violence. The battle for clean energy minerals. The global push toward renewable energy has only intensified the resource curse in the region. Between February and October 2025, the Congolese government implemented a temporary cobalt export ban to stabilize domestic market prices and push for local processing factories, rather than allowing raw minerals to be exported directly to China or Europe. Simultaneously, a massive resurgence of M23 rebel activity in late 2024 and 2025 displaced over 1 million people in the east. While diplomatic attempts like the Washington Agreement and the Doha Declaration of Principles were signed in mid-2025 to curb illegal mineral smuggling and secure cross-border trade, peace remains incredibly fragile on the ground. The structural challenge. Because the formal mining sector is heavily dominated by foreign state-backed corporations and the informal sector is exploited by armed militias, the wealth generated bypasses the local economy entirely. This leaves the Congolese people to bear the severe environmental and human costs of extraction without seeing any of the financial reward.
Africa's World War. To fully understand how minerals became explicitly tied to warfare in Africa, one must look at the Second Congo War, 1998 to 2003. Often called Africa's World War, it remains the deadliest conflict since World War II. What began as a localized rebellion quickly mutated into a continental grab for territory, where the lines between military strategy and corporate plunder completely dissolved. The outbreak of war. August 1998. In May 1997, Laurent Désiré Kabila seized power in the DRC, overthrowing the longtime dictator Mobutu Sese Seko with the military backing of Rwanda and Uganda. However, by mid-1998, Kabila grew wary of his foreign benefactors' growing influence inside his government. On July 26, 1998, Kabila summarily dismissed all Rwandan and Ugandan military officers from the Congolese army and ordered them to leave the country. On August 2, 1998, furious at the betrayal, Rwandan troops stationed in the eastern DRC mutinied, forming a rebel proxy group called the Rassemblement Congolais pour la Démocratie, RCD. In a daring military maneuver, Rwandan forces hijacked aircraft, flew across the continent to the western Kitona military base, and marched toward the capital city of Kinshasa, intending to overthrow Kabila within days. The continental escalation. Two warring blocs. As Kinshasa faced imminent collapse, Kabila appealed to the Southern African Development Community, SADC, for help. The continent fractured into two massive, heavily armed coalitions, turning the DRC into a battleground for 9 African nations. The Allied Coalition defending the DRC government. Zimbabwe. President Robert Mugabe deployed 12,000 troops. including advanced fighter jets and attack helicopters, successfully halting the Rwandan advance just miles from Kinshasa. Angola, fearing that a chaotic DRC would allow Angolan UNITA rebels a safe haven, Angola sent armor and infantry units to secure the western coastline and oil fields. Namibia deployed a smaller contingent of troops to support its regional SADC allies. The invading bloc, backing rebel factions. Rwanda, motivated by national security, aimed to hunt down the Interahamwe, Hutu militias responsible for the 1994 Rwandan genocide, who had fled into eastern Congo. Uganda backed a separate rebel group, the Movement de Liberation du Congo, MLC, led by Jean-Pierre Bemba, to secure its southwestern border. Burundi joined to combat its own internal rebel groups operating out of Congolese territory. The self-financing war. The 2001 UN exposure. By 1999, the front lines stabilized, effectively cutting the DRC in half. The war shifted from a conflict of political ideology to a war of economic convenience. Military forces realized that instead of waiting for budgets from their home capitals, they could fund their campaigns directly from the ground beneath their feet. In April 2001, the United Nations panel of experts released a groundbreaking report that shocked the international community. It explicitly detailed how the war had become a self-sustaining cycle. It stated, "The conflict in the Democratic Republic of the Congo has become mainly about access, control, and trade of 5 key mineral resources: coltan, diamonds, copper, cobalt, and gold. The war downstream has become self-financing." The UN panel documented 2 distinct forms of resource exploitation. During the war, foreign governments and their allies developed different methods of extracting wealth from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Rwanda and Uganda engaged in direct, systematic looting, with their armed forces seizing large stockpiles of valuable resources, such as coltan and timber from Congolese warehouses and mining areas. The Rwandan military even established a special Congo desk in Kigali to coordinate the collection, transportation, and sale of minerals taken from eastern Congo. In less than 2 years, this system reportedly generated about $250 million for Rwanda's military budget. Zimbabwe, meanwhile, pursued a more commercial approach. In exchange for Zimbabwe's military support, President Laurent Kabila granted lucrative mining concessions to individuals within President Robert Mugabe's inner circle. Joint venture companies were subsequently created between the Zimbabwean military and Gécamines, Congo's state-owned mining company. Through these arrangements, enormous quantities of copper, diamonds, and other mineral wealth were extracted and transferred abroad, allowing political and military elites to profit, while the Congolese population saw little benefit from the country's vast natural resources. The human toll and the Sun City Agreement. The true tragedy of the Second Congo War was not fought on traditional battlefields. Because armies targeted mineral-rich towns and transport hubs, millions of civilians were driven from their homes into dense malaria-ridden rainforests. Of the estimated 5.4 million deaths attributed to the conflict, over 90% died from completely preventable causes: starvation, cholera, malaria, and diarrhea, because the ongoing violence made humanitarian aid and medical infrastructure completely inaccessible. Following years of grueling negotiations, the major factions signed the Global and All-Inclusive Agreement in Sun City, South Africa, in December 2002. This agreement established a transitional government leading to the official end of the war in 2003. However, the peace agreement only integrated rebel warlords into the formal Congolese army without addressing the underlying black market mining networks. The infrastructure of the conflict mineral economy survived entirely intact, laying the groundwork for the localized militia violence that continues to plague eastern Congo today. The coltan boom. While the DRC has always been valued for its copper and gold, the turn of the millennium introduced a brand new driver of conflict: coltan, short for columbite tantalite. When refined into tantalum powder, this rare mineral possesses an extraordinary ability to store and release electrical charges in highly stable, microscopic amounts. As the world transitioned from bulky desktop setups to highly portable, palm-sized personal tech, tantalum became the foundational building block of modern microelectronics. Between late 1999 and late 2000, the global demand for electronics exploded simultaneously with a massive bottleneck in the traditional tantalum supply chain, which was heavily reliant on industrial mines in Australia. The catalyst. In early 2000, Sony was preparing for the highly anticipated global launch of the PlayStation 2, PS2. Anticipating massive holiday sales, electronics manufacturers scrambled to secure tantalum for circuit board capacitors. This sudden commercial panic sent shockwaves through the global spot market. The price of coltan skyrocketed tenfold in less than a year, surging from roughly $30 per pound in 1999 to an astronomical $380 per pound. Production elsewhere was locked into rigid, long-term corporate contracts. Global electronics buyers turned their eyes toward the easily accessible surface deposits of eastern Congo. The astronomical price spike triggered an immediate chaotic migration across the eastern provinces of North Kivu, South Kivu, and Maniema. Because coltan sits in shallow alluvial beds, riverbeds, and loose soil, it requires no heavy machinery to extract. It can be mined using nothing but bare hands, shovels, and plastic basins, a process known as artisanal mining. Armed groups seize mines, communities dependent. Artisanal gold rush, social dissolution. Virtually overnight, entire communities abandoned their traditional livelihoods. Farmers walked away from fields of cassava and coffee, herdsmen slaughtered or sold their livestock, and thousands of university and primary school students dropped out of classrooms. They all headed into dense rainforests like the Masisi and Kalehe territories. Informal, makeshift mining camps with names like Les États-Unis, the United States, materialized in the jungle almost overnight, turning into hyperpopulated trading hubs powered entirely by manual sweat. Economic captivity. While a successful digger could make more money in a day washing mud than a farmer could make in a month, the hyperinflation it caused ruined local economies. Food prices in eastern cities like Goma soared because no one was farming anymore. Entire local economies became unsustainably, singularly dependent on a volatile global commodity market. Warlords and the monetization of the supply chain. The rapid influx of cash and desperate laborers did not go unnoticed by the armed factions operating in the lawless vacuum of the Second Congo War. Rebel groups and foreign militias quickly realized they didn't need to pick up a shovel to get rich. They just had to control the bottlenecks. Militias, like the Rwandan-backed RCD, Rassemblement Congolais pour la Démocratie, and local Mai groups, weaponized ethnic fractures to violently expel local populations and seize control of the most lucrative river valleys and hillsides. Armed guards forced miners, including thousands of children, into unstable, hand-dug pits. Children were preferred for clearing narrow tunnels due to their small size. Warlords routinely claimed up to 50% of a miner's daily yield as an arbitrary security fee. Militias set up hundreds of roadblocks along jungle footpaths. Any middleman, negociant, carrying sacks of unrefined ore out of the forest to urban centers was heavily taxed at gunpoint. The taxed coltan was sold to urban trading houses, comptoirs, in Goma or Bukavu. From there, it was systematically smuggled across porous borders into Rwanda or Uganda, effectively laundering dirty conflict minerals into the legitimate international supply chain. The legacy of the digital boom. By late 2001, the spot price of coltan crashed back down to earth, leaving thousands of Congolese miners indebted and stranded. However, the structural blueprint had been permanently established. The very microchips, smartphones, and gaming consoles that fueled the early 2000s consumer technology revolution were directly subsidized by an unmonitored, violent black market. Decades later, while the names of the rebel groups change and the demand has shifted toward battery-grade cobalt and copper, the exact same supply chain extortion mechanics pioneered during the coltan fever continue to destabilize the deadly reality of artisanal mining. To understand the human cost behind global technology and energy supply chains, one must look at the reality of artisanal and small-scale mining, ASM. This is not corporate, industrial mining with heavy machinery, engineers, and safety protocols. It is a highly informal, labor-intensive economy where individuals, often called cruisers, diggers in the DRC risk their lives daily in hand-dug pits. Across the mineral belts of Central and East Africa, an estimated 2 million people work directly in artisanal mines, with millions more economically dependent on their daily yields. Without geological mapping or structural engineering, artisanal mining sites are inherently unstable. Miners rely on basic tools, intuition, and sheer luck to extract minerals from deep within the earth. Narrow, unventilated, lit only by cheap flashlights. When a miner descends into these informal operations, they face a specific set of life-threatening physical hazards, structural collapse, and landslides. To maximize their yield, miners dig narrow horizontal tunnels off a main vertical shaft without installing timber supports. Heavy seasonal rains or vibration from nearby industrial machinery can cause entire hillsides to liquefy, burying workers instantly. Suffocation and asphyxiation. Once a shaft goes deeper than 30 to 50 feet, oxygen levels drop drastically. Without mechanical ventilation systems, toxic gases like carbon monoxide and methane accumulate, causing miners to quietly lose consciousness and suffocate in the dark. Toxic and radioactive exposure. In the southern copper-cobalt belt, mining sites frequently contain high levels of uranium and heavy metals. Breathing in heavy mineral dust day after day leads to severe respiratory illnesses, skin ulcers, and high rates of birth defects in nearby mining communities. Flash flooding. Underground water tables are frequently breached during excavation. Lacking heavy-duty motorized pumps, miners can be trapped and drowned within minutes if a subterranean water pocket bursts. Real-world disasters. The unreported toll. Because the vast majority of these mining sites operate outside the formal legal framework, there are no official regulatory logs, no mandatory incident reports, and no emergency rescue teams. When a tragedy occurs, fellow miners use their bare hands to dig out survivors. Deaths are routinely covered up or underreported by local site bosses to avoid state intervention or closure. However, the scale of the disasters occasionally forces them into international view. In June 2019, tragedy struck in Kolwezi, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo's mineral-rich Lualaba province. At the Komodo Copper Company concession, a massive collapse of several mining terraces buried dozens of artisanal miners who had entered the industrial site in search of copper and cobalt deposits. At least 43 people lost their lives in one of the country's deadliest mining accidents in recent years. Just months later, in December 2019, another disaster unfolded in Maniema province. Following days of heavy rainfall, an informal deep-pit gold mine near the village of Nadio gave way. A landslide sent tons of mud crashing into the excavation, burying an estimated 30 miners alive. The pattern was not confined to the Congo. In January 2023, a horizontal shaft collapsed at the traditional Kalat al-Nahas gold mine in Al-Abaidia, Sudan's River Nile state. Dug largely by hand and lacking proper structural support, the tunnel caved in without warning, trapping and killing at least 10 miners. Then, in February 2024, disaster struck once again in the Rubaya mining district of North Kivu province, one of the world's most important sources of coltan. The region, already plagued by competition among armed groups seeking control of mineral resources, witnessed a series of tunnel collapses that killed more than 15 artisanal miners. Why they dig? Instantly. If the risks are so absolute, why do millions continue to descend into the pits? The answer lies in a complete lack of economic alternatives. In conflict-affected regions like Eastern Congo, or the volatile gold fields of Sudan, traditional farming has been entirely disrupted by armed conflict, displacement, and environmental degradation. A regular job in the formal economy is non-existent for the vast majority of young people.
The hidden cost of our daily technology is a reality we can no longer ignore, but exposing these stories is only the first step. Breathing life into them requires a community. By taking just 2 seconds to subscribe, like, and share this documentary, you directly help push this story past the algorithms and onto the screens of millions who need to see it. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss our upcoming investigative pieces. Your engagement isn't just a click. It's a voice for those who have been silenced. Thank you for watching and for standing with us.